A Grammy Awards ceremony for the Middle East. That's the goal Taymoor Marmarchi has in sight. He's the first executive director of the new Mena Recording Academy, and is laying the groundwork for a future where Arab and North African artists are recognized at the highest level, not just in the region, but on the global Grammy stage. Based in the UAE, Marmarchi is leading efforts to build an inclusive music community, one that brings together artists, producers, and industry veterans from across the region and its diaspora. His plans include a regional membership scheme, a dedicated Grammy category for the Middle East, and eventually a full awards ceremony of its own. He says the blueprint is already there, the Latin Grammys. The question is whether the Arab world's fractured music industry can come together in time to follow it. Welcome to Tarab, a new podcast from the National in Abu Dhabi that explores the Middle East dynamic and evolving music scene through interviews with some of the region's most compelling artists and cultural leaders. I'm your host Saeed, and in this episode, I speak to Taymoor Marmarchi about building bridges, breaking silos, and why the time is right for a Grammy moment in the region. Taymoor, great to have you.
Lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
So let's get into it. Executive Director of the Recording Academy, Mena. Sweet, sweet name. So what does that mean for the person in the street and for the artist in the studio?
Well, first, thank you for having me. I think what's important to distinguish here is that the Recording Academy, for the first time in its 57-year history, is now looking at global expansion. They understand the importance of the global perspective, right? So where the world is getting smaller, technology is bringing us together, music is being discovered from all over the world. Where it was very foreign in the past, now it becomes much more acceptable, shareable, discoverable. So it's really an exciting time to be in the industry and to look at it from a macro lens. And what's happening now is, with all the different partnerships, the first time that the Recording Academy, after its long history with CBS, has moved to Disney. And there's a strategic decision for that. In 2026-27 will be the first Grammys on the Disney channels. And the Disney means Disney Plus, Disney Streaming, Disney Global. And that means much more eyeballs, much more global appeal. So, of course, the Academy has to also look at that as its macro vision, as much as any of these major conglomerate brands and IPs in the music, entertainment, film space are looking at global expansion. So they looked at different markets, Africa, MENA, Asia, and really looked at, I've been studying for the last couple of years to see where they want to launch first. And we're happy and excited that MENA is going to be the first sort of location for that global expansion.
So does that mean all roads lead to the first MENA version of the Grammy Awards?
So that is the vision for the long term, but there are steps to getting there. First is ensuring the industry is properly established, structured in a way that really supports the talents, builds a proper music ecosystem, and ensures that we have a membership pool. Because the difference of the Recording Academy, which is the Grammys, or the Motion Picture Academy, the Oscars, these are the only two awards ceremonies that are peer-to-peer. It's voted through industry peers, right? So you have to be an artist or a songwriter or a producer or a composer or somebody that qualifies to be a member in this space in order to vote for your peers. And that's the power of this, because it's really driven by the industry. So the most important thing for MENA first as a priority would be to establish that structure. And that to me is a really interesting focus from my experience and my background in this region. I think it's about time that we actually build for the first time, with the most incredible brand and IP globally in music, to establish a really strong industry-focused structure and building the music ecosystem from across the region, all the way from Morocco through Saudi and all in between. And that means really identifying the talent, identifying the creatives who are going to be part of this, and building it out in a way that is really establishing a real industry. Today, we have so much rich music in our culture and our heritage all across, whether you're an Iraqi or a Moroccan or a Saudi or living here in the UAE. We have so much diversity, but we don't necessarily have a network that we can come together as industry folk. We don't have a society or a collecting society where we can support and represent. Those things are coming slowly but surely. But I think the Recording Academy is a neutral incredible brand with the force that can really bring people together in the music and creative space and really leverage, because what happens is then you support music industry folks so people can actually monetize, can be discovered, better distribution methods, more connectability, accessibility. And these are things that are really missing right now in a lot of the pockets of where music is really hot. Morocco, Egypt, Lebanon, UAE, Saudi, really understanding that these markets have so much interesting and creative talent, but it's all siloed.
But for example, though, there's some other, just to get an understanding of what you're saying, is that there's Australia, for example, doesn't have a recording academy chapter, but it's pretty well organized. Is that because Australia has an equivalent of a neutral body? So is that really what the Recording Academy is, not like a legislative body or a policy making body, but it's kind of like a conduit between the artists and the policymakers, between as well the commercial sector? Is that what you are? Almost like the Switzerland in a sense of music scene in terms of each country?
Yeah, so let me just identify. So Australia, or anywhere in Europe for that matter, is a much more mature industry, right? It's a much more mature market. And the reason is because they've established proper collecting societies, publishing, distribution platforms, which is slowly creeping up in our region, but it still has not been established. Artists and content has not been represented well enough. Songwriters do not get paid. People are not seeing the full 360 ecosystem of where that's actually in play. Australia or in Europe and other sort of established music markets, that already exists. And that has happened for many years. And there has been legislation and there has all of that. But right now, what's exciting is that the global south is coming forward to the forefront because music is leading the conversation. And the youth, I mean, we're talking about in our region alone, 700 million youth under the age of 35. So we have a massive market that really is attractive to sort of any kind of global vision and expansion. And so we're thinking, okay, music is becoming such a communicator. It's a connective piece, right? So it's universal language. And with the DSPs and the platforms like the TikToks and whatnot, you're now able to discover music that you never were before, right? So an Arabic piece of music is now being played on an American curated content. So it's just crazy how this dynamic sort of expansion is already working in a sort of organic way through the music. And that speaks volumes, right? So when you're looking at industry, it's really important to have that structured, because then every level of that gets represented properly, gets monetized correctly, is built in with a foundation that can support the future artists and creators to come forward and to feel represented, right? So a lot of the time, let's talk about some of our region. With music writers and songwriters, for example, or lyricists, they're usually paid outright, right? So you get a buyout fee because there's no leverage or no sort of vision for them to be able to collect as their songs are being played on radios and being downloaded on streaming from here. But in the US or in the UK or in even Australia, the songwriters don't just sell off their record. They actually have a stake in their royalties. And that's so important because they're able to then build their own content independently, can actually monetize.
So they're well established. So that means if by the Recording Academy coming to MENA, you're kind of entering a quite unique situation, right? Where you're almost kind of entering a landscape that's relatively barren in terms of just setting up the infrastructure. Things are on the way, as you're saying, as the establishment of a collecting agency and more industry safeguards to protect the copyright and creative work of artists. But while that's coming, the Recording Academy is trying to do something here. So does that make your job significantly more unique than your peers who are the heads of the Recording Academy, let's say in Latin America, let's say in North America?
Well, the Latin Grammys is the only other location outside of the US where the Academy exists, right? And it's based out of Miami because you have the melting pot of all of the Latin countries. Similarly, why we've chosen Abu Dhabi and as a sort of hub and a key location destination. It's the center of the universe right now. And so the world is coming here as a melting pot. Oh, it's attracting not only residents who are becoming expats, but also all of the diaspora that's coming back and forth and using it as a hub. Now, what our attraction is, how does that become a location for international artists to come to Abu Dhabi or to the region? They want to make sure that if they're working here and building here and developing here, and we know that the UAE, for example, has a 12% creative economies target that they want to build as a future, GDP. And for that perspective, you can only do that if you have an infrastructure here to attract those people around the world to come and work, because they will know they're represented. They will know they'll be able to get proper collections, royalties, publishing rights. Their IPs will be protected. These are things that are key for international artists, not just major stars, but also young up-and-coming talents who want to work with a producer here, want to record at a studio here, want to potentially look at Abu Dhabi as their next destination, or even a residence. Those don't currently exist. So those are things we're putting into play. Recording Academy is going to play a significant role in supporting that with the ministries, minister, in this case, DCT, Department of Culture and Tourism in Abu Dhabi, or the Minister of Culture in Riyadh, and other
So you provide
expertise.
expertise.
Expertise
And execution.
Correct. That's the intention. So we're bringing the knowledge and the know-how from an established industry in the US, and we're localizing it and making it personalized to this market, which is my role.
In line with the policy vision of the respective countries in MENA that you represent.
Correct. So we want to make sure it's localized, it feels homegrown, talent wants to be represented locally, not an imposition from the US or an international body. We're not a record label, right? So we're not coming in as a Sony or Universal and a Virgin who are coming in as a satellite office here and looking at how they can implement all their international policy. No, we're looking at this as a homegrown, locally created concept. If you're in Morocco, you're going to be represented by Moroccans. If you're in Egypt, you will be represented by Egyptians.
From the Recording
Academies, yes, what we're creating in terms of that network.
So currently, you are in the process of setting up satellite offices, correct? To be staffed by the people from that country to engage with those artists.
Before we get into offices, it's not satellite offices, we'll have representation in each of those markets. But we're doing that and driving that through our most important factor, which is membership.
That's right. So membership is a key. Membership is a key factor. It's the lifeblood.
It's a driver.
It's the driver. So
it is.
So the Recording Academy, Mena, right now you've officially launched before a drive for members to come to join. So what does that mean? So I'm an artist now who lives in Mena. I might not be the most high-profile artist, but I work. I'm steady. So where do I fit into this? What are you looking for? What are the criteria, per se, for an artist to join the Recording Academy in Mena?
Well, membership is the bloodline, as you say, of the Recording Academy in the US as well. And what it entails is bringing together the entire music creative industry. So you could have 7 or 8 different categories. You could be an artist, a songwriter, a producer, a composer, a score writer, a musician. And any of those categories in that specific lane, you would have to have certain criteria. The criteria in a nutshell, because what we want to do is the initial thing we will plan is an inaugural membership of 300 solid music creatives who fit the profile on a global scale. We don't want to change the criteria. We want to make sure they're up the standard that the US would expect if you're trying to get into a New York chapter or LA chapter. And what's important to understand with that is, 1, you have to have 12 pieces of music or works created and published in the last 5 years.
Of various success.
It has to stay in one lane. So if you are a artist or a songwriter, you would have to have 12 pieces of music as an artist that have been published, or 12 pieces as a songwriter that have been published. If you're a singer-songwriter, you can't have 6 singer-songwriter. You'd have to have 12 in each category. So you'd pick one specific category that represents you as an artist or a creative in the music industry, and you would have to have 12 credits, which stands for 12 published pieces of work. And where would they be published? On any of the internationally recognized platforms, and regionally with the Angamis and others. But talking about Apple, Spotify, anywhere that's published that we can track. That's number 1. And it has to be within the past 5 years to keep them relevant and ensure that they're continually creating content. And additionally, they would have to have 2 recommendations from an industry peer who can actually support that. And then in the US, there's usually a small fee, a nominal fee every year, about $150 US. But we're looking at the first 2 years to waive that fee and support the inaugural membership build. We're looking at a target of 300 people initially who will become members of the US Recording Academy. That will be the first time that we've ever opened the doors to the MENA region, where we can actually have Arabs singing, speaking, Farsi, Turkish, all the different region that can actually be represented at the MENA for the first time.
Do they have to be of a certain profile level?
No. So if you have a young up-and-coming star that we don't necessarily know the name of, or a writer that's behind the scenes, but they do have 12 published pieces of work, they will absolutely be qualified. The question is making sure that they're fitting the profile in terms of in what we're looking initially, is to ensure that we have the best in the industry really positioning that.
Because they're essentially foundational members.
Correct.
And their job would be almost as ambassadorial.
So
this is what
ambassadorial
we can offer.
as a collective, but also by being in the membership pool of the US, 300 new members from MENA specifically, they will then be able to nominate pieces of work that comes out of our region and vote for that. So, for example, they would be able to nominate an artist that's from the UAE with a song that we all believe collectively is in a fantastic submission opportunity to be nominated to the overall membership pool. There's around 13,000 members in the US. They'll be part of that body. And there's a category called the Global Award category.
That's an actual award that was launched about 2 years ago.
Yeah, so there was a category launch, but you have the Best African Artist, you have other...
it's an umbrella term for a number of awards.
Correct. So
okay.
But there is a global award, and potentially you could have the first Arab artist or writer or creator ever receiving a Grammy in the US.
Or perhaps a first category or a first award that's like Best MENA.
So that will be, once we've established, so that's another process.
Right.
So the step one is getting the membership structured in this region. With that comes that opportunity to nominate talent, nominate music. The second step would be to build the wider membership range. We're looking at a minimum of 4,000 members, which would then be completely creative for the region. Reaching that target, we will then be able to create the first Grammy Awards in the Middle East.
I mean, this is a similar story, essentially, to how the Latin Grammys began.
Correct.
Latin Grammys was not just suddenly imposed. It wasn't the case of the Recording Academy came, we're launching in Latin America, and then suddenly there's an award. The Latin Grammy Awards was a culmination of those steps that you mentioned, correct?
Correct. So the Latin Grammys became the same way with a small group of people, built a committee, started looking for members across the Latin countries, Latin territories. And Brazil was the only one who spoke Portuguese, but collectively they looked at the region. And that started building that membership pool. They currently have around 6,000 members, which gave them enough of that industry support to build their first awards.
How many years did it take from the establishment of the Latin Grammys to the first Grammy Awards?
I believe it was 3 to 5 years, between 3 to 5 years of establishing and building and having their first award, which is exactly our target as well.
So that is the roadmap.
Yes. So we're looking at a 3-year building out this membership, flushing this out, building out these programs that we're going to be creating with the intention of in the 5 years to have our first actual regional awards.
I want to bring this back now in the sense that this is great in terms of we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about an ecosystem. But at the same time, though, like there'll be probably a certain segment of musicians from MENA who would read this and they wondering, how do I fit in all this? Because yes, I might not have 6 to 12 credits. I might just be starting out. So what does the Grammy offer them, the person who's just starting the Recording Academy? Because a lot of the time, perhaps people will think, well, hold on, this could be elitist for me. Do I fit in? So what is your message to those artists?
So we're being very specific about this. It's important. I'm glad you raised this. Our intention is to support all talent, right? No matter what level of your career. And that will be supported with programs, mentorships, studio accessibility, funding, grants, and other opportunities for young talent who can actually work and build. But they have to have a target as well. They have to know that they're, for example, to be recognized as a member, a part of the community, that they're going to be establishing and recording and releasing records, right? Releasing music, whatever category they may be in. But I think that supports them. That we've been speaking to a lot of artists, young talent who have not necessarily been signed, a lot of independents too, who want ways to have support on if they do release music and they don't have the big machine of the record label, how will they be able to monetize, make a living, career out of this? And one of the areas is the importance that we're seeing, okay, well, we can partner and connect you with all the different pieces that needs to make that happen. So as an independent, you need to have a distributor, you need to have a publisher, you need to have a potentially management and talent support. But also what's important is that because we're in parallel, we're seeing the pop-up of these collection societies, it's going to give a lot of opportunity for these younger kids to be able to be represented and know that there's checks coming in every month because there's a society collecting and paying back those talents. So there's, important industry a structure that needs to happen to help those kids, but also from a talent perspective. I work with a lot of talent over the years, and some have just starting up, and they think it's a very expensive business. Yes, it can be, but today people are creating beats and tracks in their homes, in their garages. They're releasing songs on different platforms, SoundCloud and TikTok, being discovered by different producers, being able to submit it to DJs and put it play at clubs with small, sort of a smaller strategic positioning and money that not necessarily is out of pocket. Too much out of pocket, could get onto radio. There's ways of doing it. And I think that, again, the knowledge of doing that, the structure of supporting those talents doesn't necessarily exist. We're building that as part of our infrastructure. And they will be supported by the local ministries. And the intention for us to work with governments is precisely to support those young talents and making sure they have a chance.
So how rewarding is this position for you, Taymoor? Because I've known you for over a decade now, and I've seen your journey in terms of the recording industry. You've touched upon every single facet of the industry in your work. So you managed artists, you worked in a label, you ran a label, you created concerts, you created festivals. So you basically worked up the building. Do you kind of feel like now this position gives you now almost a panoramic view of what this industry is, and more importantly, what the challenges are and what it needs to overcome?
Yeah, beautiful question. My journey has been pretty incredible. I've been in the industry for 25 years, starting with Michael Jackson, obviously set the bar extremely high.
Tell us a little bit about that. I didn't want to name drop Michael Jackson until you did.
Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit about that.
That's how I was going in a very different career path, and meeting Michael in the late 90s really changed my life completely.
What were you doing then?
So I had my own company in London. I'm from London. So I established a sort of a media talent agency. And there were a series of projects that took place that I had relationships with, and Michael Jackson happened to be part of that. Without going into sort of some of the projects, I ended up becoming a special project envoy for him. He had projects in Germany, in Korea, in Europe. So I was becoming an international representative, and of his foundation, his charity foundation, Heal the World. And that sort of changed things that took place and introductions that happened that I supported really positioned me very interesting there. And next thing, I found myself in Neverland at a studio working on You Rock My World with Rodney Jerkins and other major producers that were there. So that changed my path. And then after Michael for 7 years, until he sadly passed, I was with his producer, Quincy Jones, for another 6 years. And that was another incredible moment. So I had my first decade of the most incredible, highest sort of achieving talent in the planet, right? So for me, it was like I managed to see it all.
One of the interesting projects that I want to mention, I mean, there's many projects, but one I think that's quite notable is your project with Quincy Jones. That was Bokra. Now, that was perhaps a superficial understanding would be this is almost like the Arab world's Heal the World.
We Are the World. Yeah.
We Are the World.
Yeah.
Sorry, We Are the World.
Yeah.
That's right. So again, picture it, big charity single, more than a dozen.
24 Arab artists.
24 Arab artists from Morocco to the Gulf for this big charity single. Tell us a little bit about that charity single. And do you think, in a way, that single then, working on that, and where you are now at the Recording Academy, it kind of mirrors exactly, like basically what you're doing right now is basically an industry version of creating a big charity single with 24 different, it's like 240?
Yeah, I mean, look, with that project, that's actually what brought me to the UAE. So Quincy Jones is the one who brought me to the UAE. He said, come out to Dubai and represent me and launch something called Global Gumbo Group.
What year was that?
2011. And he said that once we did this project with Bokra, which was recorded in Morocco, it was initially to support children education programs in the arts for the region. But that year was the Arab Spring. So it almost became an anthem for the Arab Spring because it was featuring so many talent from all of these countries.
Including Emirati talent.
Absolutely. Faiz Saeed was actually a part of that.
A wonderful seasoned singer and songwriter.
Absolutely. And we had really an amazing support from Morocco, from Qatar, from the UAE of launching this. And we were able to, Shakira did an introductory message. Akon was featured on that track. 24 Arab artists, all levels, from A-list stars, B-list stars, up-and-coming new artists. So it was a beautiful message. And Quincy Jones, as executive producer, with Red One, the Moroccan producer, was also worked on it. So it was a beautiful way to bring it in. And when we launched it, I think it's now have about 60 million hits on YouTube. But it was one of those first sort of big anthem music pop records that came with this region.
Also,
that led to a whole different chapter of what I was
But
doing.
also at the same time, that was a challenging project because I remember when that song came out. And I was here with the National. You talk about, I mean, there's one of the challenges in the industry today is that people work in silos. Back then, the silos, they're very ingrained. So did that experience kind of give you an insight into the challenges that the region faced and what it could achieve if we just kind of work together a little bit more?
Yeah, which is the crazy part of that. In 2011, we launched this song with the launch of YouTube in the region. So YouTube didn't exist back then. So when you talk about challenge of getting any kind of distribution or any kind of eyeballs on your content, there was no platform. YouTube still hadn't, it was just the beginning of YouTube. So we launched the song with the launch of YouTube in the region, and it was just, we had none of that huge momentum because it was still brand new. But that was already a massive challenge. But then the opportunity to say, okay, now that we're building this out, Apple was opening that time. Spotify was just coming in. It took a minute. And Rami was being sort of considered. It wasn't even around at that point. So we were really able to, okay, how do we take this track and make it global with 24 Arab singers? So it's like a completely foreign...
That's right. You wrote, like you produced or co-produced the official theme song for the Special Olympics,
yes,
which was held in Abu Dhabi in
2019.
In 2019.
So I was the music director for the opening closing ceremonies, and I put together a song and a video written by Greg Wells, who did The Greatest Showman, and written by Ryan Tedder, head singer of One Republic. And we put together Ryan, Avril Lavigne, and Luis Fonsi with Hussein Al Jasmi, Asala, and Tamer Husni. And now you bring these two worlds to come together, which was quite fascinating. And it was a beautiful song. And they all came out and actually performed it live on stage, which was beautifully received. And that was really a great, I felt very important achievement. And that was in the middle of my sort of transition from the Quincy Jones world and building these international IPs in the region to running Platinum Records in NBC. So I was running a music label with Arabic-focused talent, coming off of the music formats, right? So Idol, Voice, Middle, all those.
So one of the biggest artists at that time was Mohammed Assaf.
Yes.
Who was a global sensation.
Absolutely.
Palestinian, supremely talented Palestinian singer who won Arab Idol.
I was there with him at the start, and I supported his career for 5 years as he propelled and became this big pop sensation.
The interesting thing about your career, in terms of just seeing some of the themes here, is that you worked with you tried and you have achieved to a certain respect of taking Arabic artists or Arabic-inspired art and giving it a global platform. But the thing is, we haven't seen a lot of that. We're blessed, the region, Middle East and North Africa, are blessed, probably per capita, like in terms of so many songwriters just walking down the street. So everyone's a great singer. But if at best they're mostly concerned or their trajectory is limited to their respective country or maybe the region, no one's going outside in terms of that. Why is that, do you think?
So let me just kind of set the frame for that question. I've always been the bridge. I've always seen myself as a bridge between the Middle East and international market. I'm Iraqi origin, brought up in London, worked in Los Angeles with major stars, but also worked locally in the Arab market, representing Arab stars for more than 15 years, from production to talent to events to whatever they do. And that has allowed me to be sort of a powerhouse in both markets, right? And I see that conduit, the bridge, is what connects that. You asked earlier, you've done all of these things in my career. Yes, I have. I've done it all, every part of the music industry. But the Recording Academy is 100% for me a legacy piece, right? It's a part where it's not about money. This is purely supporting the industry. And if I can achieve this bridge and turn it into this real powerhouse platform for our region to be discovered globally, then I've achieved my goal. My interest is purely legacy, supporting the industry locally, building it regionally, and making it discoverable internationally. And that's why I feel like my own history and my past 25 years in this business has allowed me to be a bridge of supporting multiple facets of talent and being able to support them not only in their local markets, but understanding what the region entails and how to take that globally. So when you say you've done these things, yes, I can name 15 different projects that have had Arabic stars or Arabic artists or Arabic work marketed and positioned globally. But that's one person doing it, right, with my own team. But that's not enough to sustain sort of this bigger piece.
Taymoor Marmarchi, we're excited for you being part of Tarab. Thank you so much for bringing it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and good luck with Tarab. I think it's going to be an amazing platform.
That's all for this episode of Tarab. Thanks for listening. Yasmin Al-Taji is our producer. Dua Farid is our editor. Arthur Edison is our audio engineer. And I've been your host, Saeed Saeed.